All right, and welcome everybody, new viewers and old, to the Daily Space Weather. Thanks everybody who tuned into yesterday's video. We've got more spectacular footage today. Here's ionized helium from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. I would note this large prominence down here. We captured it yesterday on our Twitch live stream, twitch.tv/smAsho. Check that out if you haven't. We've also got a new sunspot forming over here in the southeast. So that's Sunspot 2863 right there. Sunspot 2860 is going to set and lose its name today. And all of the features on the sun are in the southern hemisphere, conveniently allowing us to do close-ups. So here's a composite. This is actually two wavelengths from the SDO. It's 304 and 171 angstroms, ionized helium and ionized iron. It's part of the ultraviolet light spectrum. A great characteristic set of wavelengths here for looking at the closest star. So here's a close-up for all you stargazers. You can see the formation of Sunspot 2863 over on your left, a coronal hole in screen center, and Sunspot 2860 on your right. There still is a very high possibility of solar flares. And we're expecting some geoaffectivity from this coronal hole. Here it is in a different wavelength. This is 193 angstroms. Also ionized iron, UV emission spectra. Sunspot 2863 is beta class, and that raises the possibility of additional solar flares. Don't get solar flares and coronal mass ejections confused, folks. Solar flares are photons in the X-ray band. Coronal mass ejections are protons, mostly hydrogen nuclei, like 90% hydrogen nuclei, and most of the rest is helium, and the tiny bit that remains are things like electrons and other heavy elements. So there's a zoomed out view in that same wavelength. Fantastic imagery here from the SDO. The radio flux is, I think it's still at 84. Here is the one-year chart of the 10.7 centimeter radio flux. The black line is the radio flux. The red line is the sunspot number. And according to Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard, it is at 84. So here's the geomagnetic dud that our SMASH team members were already aware of. Yeah, no geomagnetic storm, no CME strike whatsoever. Continuing on, let's check out global seismicity. So there is a CME strike forecasted for early today, and we don't see anything of the sort happening. We sort of called it right when it happened that I don't know what they're talking about. It looks like a miss, not a hit. So looking at global seismicity here, we see a lull in earthquake activity and an uptick in volcanic activity. We showed volcanodiscovery.com's 90-day bar graph every day. Check it out yourself if you like. There's the year-to-date earthquakes. And we did have a massive lull of 7 magnitude quakes earlier this year. Continuing on to show not very many quakes over the past 24 hours, according to the USGS site. One of the largest did occur at the central mid-Atlantic ridge there, right on the equator, just west of it there, just west of the mid-Atlantic ridge there in the central Atlantic. Also, Chile saw a 5.6. There was a 5.3 north of Ascension Island, and I just like saying Ascension Island. Please leave a comment if you visited Ascension Island. Please leave a comment if you want to go to American Samoa for New Year's Eve 2022 to 2023. Oh, it's a thing. It's a plan. It's a thing. Yeah. We're doing it. Next, volcanoes, and like I said, we're seeing a downtick here. Let's check the list. A downtick in earthquakes, by the way. Volcanoes and uptick. So we see some additional volcanoes here on the list, starting with Suwanosejima producing a 10,000-foot ash plume as it explodes over the Ryukyu Islands. Mount Ibu exploding as well over the Indonesian island of Halmahera, 6,000-foot ash plume from that. Semeru, 13,000-foot ash plume from it over East Java, Indonesia. Pagan in the Mariana Islands has raised the alert to orange. So it has produced a 3,000-foot ash plume. Please don't hang glide the caldera. Semisa in the Aleutian Islands exploding. 10,000-foot ash plume over that part of the Aleutians. An interaction of groundwater tends to make some violent activities happening because of the infusion of steam. Steam is able to blow rock apart, as you're probably well aware. Fuego exploding, producing a 15,000-foot ash plume over Guatemala. Talica now erupting once again here in Nicaragua there. 7,000-foot ash plume produced by it. Nevado del Ruiz, flight level 200. It's produced a 20,000-foot ash plume as it explodes. Revenador exploding as well. 15,000-foot ash plume there over Ecuador. Sabancaya, 25,000-foot ash plume over Peru. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Please do visit our links at smAshomash.com. And you can find all kinds of links below the video in the description. Next, looking at some more space instruments here on the GOES 16 and 17, the magnetometers. Seeing a little bit higher readings here than we saw yesterday at the lows. Anyway, that's the data for the GOES 16 and 17, and Earth is going to be in a North Pole oriented, current sheet very soon. So we're going to see the North Pole current sheet show up by tomorrow's video. Here's the data, the top view ecliptic plane field plot. By the way, if you're new to the channel, thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on finding out our channel exists. This data is gathered from 51 ground-based magnetometers, and magnetometers out here at Lagrange point 5 on stereo A and stereo B at Lagrange point 4 over here. If you look at the last image, you can see this North Pole green North Pole oriented current sheet making its way to Earth. We will cross over into a North Pole current sheet before tomorrow's daily space weather video. Here's a line of sight plot. It's basically the same data, but it also includes the solar magnetogram. And that blue line is going to continue to swing to the south throughout the day today. Here is the line of sight coronal hole plot, and the coronal hole that's moving into the Earth-facing zone here at the end of this clip is South Pole oriented. There you can see that in red, some green coronal holes for North Pole rotating in there in the north. Likelihood of large flares is actually still quite high. And keep in mind, folks, even after Sunspot 2860 sets, it still will be capable of producing large flares for a little while. I'd say about 48 more hours until that is unable to produce large solar flares detectable here at Earth. Sunspot 2863 is a beta class sunspot, and we'll be watching it closely here. It can already produce significant flares as well. It'll be raising this flare probability a little bit. KP index currently only at 1. It was probably no surprise to our regular viewers as we were not forecasting a coronal mass ejection strike. Here's the X-ray flux over the past 3 days. And here's the little flare that happened yesterday while we did our show prep and recorded our video. And here's the one that produced that large prominence that we showed earlier and that we actually streamed to Twitch. Yeah. So once again, shout out to the sun. Thanks for continuing to do things while we're doing things. It's working out smashingly. No spikes in the proton flux here. No relativistic protons have struck Earth recently. We would have probably forecasted it as we forecast coronal mass ejections before they leave the solar corona. It's our specialty. We didn't expect to do it. We just realized we were doing it, so here we are. So the real-time solar wind here looking pretty uneventful over the past 24 hours. We do see a small signal here where we see the speed dip and the temperature dip. That could be a coronal mass ejection strike, folks. And if the density of the coronal mass ejection is similar to the ongoing solar wind, that's what you would expect to see, this tiny, almost undetectable signal in the density. That could be the coronal mass ejection strike that NOAA was forecasting. I don't know. I don't want to conjecture about it. But we do see this signal here where the plasma temperature speed, BT, BZ, and phi angle are all shifting at the same moment there. That could be a minor coronal mass ejection. It looks like it may have already subsided. Talk about a glancing blow. That's not a glancing anything. That's barely even a signal. But in any case, current conditions are 9.18 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density, 315 kilometers per second for the solar wind speed, and that is very slow solar wind speed. Next, looking at the geospace here, over the past 4 hours, magnetohydrodynamic pressure modeled by the Space Weather Modeling Framework. If you want to read about where the data comes from, go to the Geospace Magnetosphere Movies page, click on Details, and you can click on the Space Weather Modeling Framework. It's a lot of variables, and again, it's a model. It's modeling magnetohydrodynamic pressure in nanopascals, and it's pretty uneventful also here in the past 4 hours. Next, looking at ground magnetic perturbations. Now you're looking at nanotesla modeled by the same Space Weather Modeling Framework. Geospace delta B are changes to Earth's B field. And we show this daily since there is a polar excursion going on. The South Magnetic Pole is someplace out here south of Australia. The north one is somewhere over Siberia. And like the last frame, that's 4 hours of data. Here's a diagram of the solar system. We like our viewers to know where stuff is. It's called astrography. And there's where things will be in 1 week on 9/9. The 9th day of smAshtember. And it's already been a smAshtember to remember. It's only September 2nd. Thanks everybody who tuned into our live stream yesterday. It was delightful. We popped champagne while streaming live to celebrate the kickoff, the launch of our website, smashomash.com/smashteam. Links in the description. It's spectacular. Next, a star chart. It's in-the-sky.org. I faced mine to the south. And if I went out now, I'd be able to look at the crotch of the interconnection between the galactic plane and the ecliptic plane, where Orion is kind of hanging out there. The largest single object visible to the naked eye must be up there in the sky. It's called Betelgeuse. And you can easily find it by drawing a perpendicular line from the buckle of Orion's belt. The only star perpendicular to Orion's belt is Betelgeuse. It's a very big, bright red star. Continuing on, we're going to do a brief cosmology segment today. We've been slacking in our cosmology segments because we've been way too busy at smashomash.com, beefing up the website, getting our subscription services going, and so on. So, brief cosmology segment today. It's basically just aesthetic. It's the astronomy picture of the day, and it is, I believe it's M51, the Whirlpool Galaxy. So it's quite picturesque. I'm just going to scroll down slowly here on the high-res image. This image was actually just taken this year. We'll give a credit to the astronomer that took it when we go back to the apod.nasa.gov page, where you can find the astronomy picture of the day as well. Great imagery there. Looks like it's in multiple bandwidths here. Probably something like optical and X-ray, maybe. Not exactly sure there. Let's go back to apod.nasa.gov. There's the zoom out. Joseph M. Drudas. So a great spiral galaxy there. NGC 5195 is what it is. M51 NGC 51 NGC 5195 and M51 are the names for that in the Messier and the New General Catalog. And that's today's cosmology segment. We're going to make one later today, hopefully if all goes well. So next, looking at charging hazards surrounding planet Earth here. We've got some relativistic charging, relativistic electron-induced charging here in the southern hemisphere, places like the Indian Ocean and over Australia. So some relativistic particles there causing some charging hazards for satellites. Here's the one-year chart of the relativistic electrons from solon.info. We're at pretty high levels here. We've been seeing electron warning levels the past couple days, and we've just crossed back into electron warning levels today. So we may see some communications breakdowns again, folks. caused by those electrons. Anyway, there's the 3-day chart of that. Here's the forecast. NOAA expecting flat to slightly lower levels of electron flux as designated by that green box. The yellow diamonds are the observation. Next, we're going to show you the total electron content forecast, rather. Here's a diagram of the Van Allen belts to show you where things like geosynchronous satellites are located. About 12,500 miles altitude. And here's your total electron content forecast. This will give you ideas of where GPS errors are most likely to occur. It's electron density through the entire air column. And if you're new to the channel, you may not realize that GPS errors are most likely to occur around the equator at noon, a time to have your location accuracy turned on. And total electron content looking pretty normal here. Here's another diagram of the atmosphere to show you where the F ionosphere layer is, because our next graphics are ionograms. So here's your ionogram. It's showing you vibrational frequency of the ionosphere at about 300 kilometers of altitude, one slice of the atmosphere. And the vibrational frequencies you're seeing here in these color blobs are each coinciding with 1 megahertz or 1 million vibrations per second. Minor anomalies here. Nothing too weird going on. Here's the latest image. That's from 10:30 Universal Time. Here's the Anomaly Map. This is departure in megahertz from the 30-day median. So mainly high-frequency anomalies here over South America. Some low-frequency anomalies there moving over Hawaii. Also some low-frequency anomalies over southern South America. Keep in mind, folks, the South Atlantic anomaly is over the South American continent, almost right in the middle of the continent, and no longer over the Atlantic Ocean. And so don't be surprised to see anomalies constantly in that location. It's the Earth's weakest portion of its magnetosphere. There's also another anomaly down here by South Africa, as when the South Atlantic anomaly moved back over South America, it seems to have split into two. You could say there's a South African anomaly too, and you can sort of see about where it is right here. Anyway, that's the latest image there. There's the ionogram from 10:30. There's the anomaly map. Things looking pretty normal at the moment. And our meteorology segment aired before the daily space weather video today on YouTube. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. We've been doing meteorology segments on the regs. Here come bonus features. It's the latest from the El Teide, Spain ground-based solar observatory. And it looks like some recent activity. Oh, wait, it's looking like old data here. Some old data and some brand new data. So let's just bring up the latest image there. There's the latest image from El Teide. That's only about 2 minutes old from when we recorded the video. Here's Sunspot 2863. That's at least how it looked during show prep. And here's how it looks now, staying pretty stable here over the past about hour. There's Sunspot 2860. Again, it will set and lose its name today, but it's still capable of producing large flares. Here's the refresh. Here's the refresh. There's 2863. It's beta class. There's Sunspot 2860. It's beta gamma class. Likelihood of solar flares remains quite high. Here's a close-up of 2860 yesterday. You can see this insane prominence. This is actually just 24 hours of data. Typically on our daily space weather videos, we use 24 hours of data for all of our solar imagery. If you haven't seen our playlists, make sure you check those out. There are over 200 videos in our Cosmology segments playlist. Also, we've recently done another one on smAsho.org Presents the Sun. Part 18 is probably the most spectacular one we've made yet, but there are 17 other ones before it. So youtube.com/smashamash/playlists has a ton of videos you may not have seen if you only watch the daily space weather. But if you only watch the daily space weather, for that we thank you as well. Yowzers. And by the way, Earth is not located there. Earth is very far from the sun. This is here for scale. So we're going to close things out here at 171 angstroms, my personal favorite wavelength. Thanks again, everybody who tuned in. Please continue to tell your friends and foes about the channel. Press the share button leave a comment, and may that solar wind be at your back.